You're listening to Vuka Online Radio.
Baby, how long? Baby, how long? Since that evening, whoa, train been gone. Baby, how long? Baby, how long? Baby, how long? If I could holler, holler like a mountain jack, yeah, I'd get on some mountain, call my baby back. Baby, how long? Wait, oh yeah, oh, baby, how long? I ain't got nobody in the world to care. Lord, I've been mistreated, oh, so long, so long. Baby, how long? Oh, baby, yeah, how long? All right, play one for me. It won't be long, baby. Lord, have mercy. One of these days, Lord, and it won't be long. Yes, I'ma catch the first thing smoking. Down the road I'm gone. Oh, baby, how long? Yes, baby, how long? Oh, baby, how long? How long? How long?
If you're enjoying this interruption and find the sound of my voice captivating, you may be experiencing extreme boredom. Try new, fast-acting Subaru Impreza in hatch or sedan. Formulated with symmetrical full-time all-wheel drive. Cure boredom fast with new Impreza.
Your inspiration radio. Vuka Online.
You're listening to Mzansi Jazz Radio.
Contemplation, that is the music there by Tandintuli from that first album, and your own Jazz on Vuka, and we chill into jazz. And before that, I see that Mesh Mashirani is busy doing some work with Prapegi Kosale, and we brought you the Time is the Son of My People, a very interesting title. When we come back, we have we've reconnected back with our correspondent up in New York. As you know, New York has started opening the city, although there's a bit of an interesting challenge because the numbers with the Delta corona is kind of beginning to rise as well. So we don't know what it's going to be. But so far, the clubs are happening, and things are going, and people are going into restaurants and all of those things. And Brian is also up and about talking to people. And next up will be Brian's conversation with the young lady, Brandy, bassist and vocalist. But we'll be back a little bit more about him when we come back.
So, how long does the average sex session last? That depends. Do you really want to know, or did you ask your buddies? The short answer is about 7 minutes. Yes, 7 minutes. It's average, which probably isn't long enough for your partner. That's why Durex developed Performer, for longer-lasting pleasure.
Are you looking for a quality used car at the right price? Then you're looking for Phoenix Used Cars. Visit our showroom at 148 Voortrekker Street in Benoni and survey our array of SUVs, sports cars,
because Durex Performer condoms make things last longer. Even radio ads.
Finance is available.
Unless you have somewhere you need to be.
Partner Alliance Vehicle Finance.
Durex, own your situation.
Alliance Vehicle Finance is a registered financial services provider. Terms and conditions apply.
Vuka, it's time to wake up with Vuka Online Radio.
Welcome back. She has been described as quite the bass player, and he said to George Coleman, "I appreciate her expertise and talent, and it was a great pleasure making an album together." That is about this young lady, jazz bassist Brandy Disterheft, who relocated to New York City from Vancouver to begin an apprenticeship under the Miles Davis bassist Ron Carter. And it's not only her fiery bass playing that makes audiences stand up and holler, but also her innovative live shows showcasing her up-tempo swinging originals and ambient voice. Her mother, who is a Chicago-born jazz B3 organist who opened for acts such as the Supremes and Carlos Ubim in their 60s, trained Brandy's ears from a very young age of 5 when she began classical piano studies. Yet her aunt, Angie Jarre, who is a Grammy-winning singer and session singer in Los Angeles, who sang with Claire Fisher and Sergio Mendes, encouraged her to sing, and she won a Juno Award for her debut album. Brandy had the honor to be the bassist for the legendary Hank Jones on the album Pleased to Meet You, and has since captivated international audiences at jazz festivals in Japan, Haiti, Canada, Europe, USA, and the prestigious venues including the Carnegie Hall. And our compatriot in New York made some time to connect with Brandy, and this is how the conversation went.
Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace, reporting live here at the Flatiron Room here in New York City. New York City now is reopened, and now the restaurants as well as music venues here in New York City can now hold up to 35%. Tonight here at the Flatiron Room, I'm honored to interview and profile a vocalist and bassist who hails from Vancouver, British Columbia, by the name of Brandy Disterheft. Now, Brandy has been a dynamic musician here on the jazz scene, both here and abroad. In fact, her current album is a trio recording featuring the legendary George Coleman entitled Surfboard. Now, this album is paying homage to the great bossa nova composer Antonio Carlos Jobim, as well as this album, you're going to hear a lot of her original compositions, as well as her stretching out vocally. Now, this lady has played and studied with the great Ron Carter, as well as Vincent Herring, just to name the endless few. Tonight, we sit down and we break bread about this recording. We talk about her Canadian upbringing, as well as talk about some of her musical influences, and also her role as a band leader. Thank you for doing this. This is one of the first segments that I have produced since last year, and this is because the city has been shut down. The city is now open. You're here at the Flatiron Room, and Anthony Wanzi, you guys were dynamic up there. Your brand new record, this is outstanding.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thanks for listening.
Oh, listening. This is what we do and what I do. You know, this is different because you have two elder statesmen on your recording. You have George Coleman, who, in my opinion, is one of the most criminally underrated tenor saxophonists. Why did you decide to make him part of this trio project?
Well, I was hearing him live, and of course I heard him as a youngster growing up on record, and then hearing him live was sort of a whole different ball game, because you can see the musicians around him, and you can see him changing keys, and you can see him going through all the substitute changes, and sort of that old Memphis bandstand mentality. And he has the biggest, robust sound with all the, virtuoso chops, yet this completely relaxed, like elder gentleman feeling. So to me, that's sort of the ultimate sound.
And, bringing it to the trio setting, you're going back to these great ensembles of the 50s and 60s, and you being a newbie or a youngster, you had to adapt really, really hard with how not only he plays, but also your drummer as well, who's also another elder statesman in the game.
Yeah, Porcinho, they call him the definitive Brazilian drummer, or the James Brown of the Brazilian funk samba. He has this like forward motion, and he really took me under his wing when I first started playing with him about 10 years ago, and he was very sweet about it, like, Brandy, listen to this, or Brandy, try this. So he almost molded me into a Brazilian bass player.
I'm gonna ask you, you're from Vancouver, and you coming to America, what were some of the things that you had to do as a musician to mold yourself, not only into this idiom called American roots music by way of jazz, but also adapting to some of the elder statesmen that groomed you?
Yeah, for example, working with Harold Mayburn. He was such a force. He was such a gentleman. He was such an example. I remember we took him on the road, and we went across the country, and being in Canada, the cities are so far apart, so we often would have like 4 a.m. lobby calls. And there he was, like in his suit and tie, all showered, ready to go, waiting in the lobby, and he would say, "Good morning, Brandy." As opposed to years of being on the road with, the younger musicians, they'd be complaining, like, what is this early lobby call? So he sort of set a precedent. And I like that, having to adapt to that real, refined, defined personality, and also obviously as a player.
Randy, you came to New York, and one of your first missions was to learn and study under NEA jazz master Ron Carter.
Yes, Mr. Carter. I'm so blessed I got to play with him, study with him. I wanted to study with him because he gets rid of the iron fist. And being a girl, a female, I always wanted to, show how strong I was or show I had a bigger sound than you boys. And he was like, no. You have to have a soft, warm, even, long sound. So we really worked on that, and I'm still working on that.
Ron is so revered, and he's been on so many records, over 3,000 recordings. I think one of the most important things, tying back to one of the questions I asked you earlier, was his ability to adapt. He's played the electric bass, which he detests, but he had to do it, one, because he had to pay the bills, but two, there were musicians and sessions where it called for him to stretch himself a little bit. How has his lessons imported all of that into how you play and how you compose?
And how I compose? Well, I don't think I look at it as adapting as much. I think after studying with, Mr. Carter and having him really implement his way, like he would say, my way is the only way. So once you learn that and sort of try and master what he's teaching you, then you have to go off and create your own voice. So I think with my writing and my bass playing, it's more and more that this is my sound, this is my emotion, my feeling, this is what I'm bringing. And I actually try and adapt less lately.
That's good. That's good. And I say that because in this album, you write a lot of the music on here and you sing as well. I mean, you're singing and playing, and that's got to be another emotion as well as another dynamic to how you're bringing both skills to the forefront.
Oh, yeah. And it's funny. Singing is so sensitive, and I feel like very vulnerable. So it's this dichotomy between playing the bass, and I'm very confident with playing the bass, and it's almost like a man versus this sweet woman. So I enjoy it. I enjoy writing and singing, and yeah, it's hard. The learning curve is hard. It takes quite a few hours to, get the, going. But
how I was going to say, because I'm looking at you on stage, and I'm like, wait a minute now. I know there's George Benson or God rest his soul, B.B. King. I'm looking at how they were able to do both of them, and I noticed that when they didn't sing, their instrument was so much greater doing the playing the guitar versus them singing. That was another instrument as well.
Yeah, it's amazing when they make it look effortless. It's amazing. I find it takes quite a few hours, and then it finally clicks. But
thank you for the offer. You have no sir. I don't drink with strangers as a rule. Perhaps it just is one time. It's cold and dark outside. A little something more might hit your spine. Were you lost in the hazy mist too? Guided by the lamppost street light.
Who are some of your musical influences?
Well, my mom is from Chicago. She's a B3 organ player, jazz piano player. So I grew up listening to what she grew up, what she was practicing to. And she was really into Bill Evans. So Scott LaFaro was one of the earliest bass players. And then from there, of course, Ray Brown with Oscar Peterson growing up in Canada. And then I really got into Monk with Larry Gales with his walking bass solos, and of course all the Ellington, Jimmy Blanton. That to me is the most modern bass playing and full sound. And I was just checking out Butch Warren. I mean, there's such a list. Sam Jones was a really big figure, and still to this day, because he had such a warm, huge, full sound.
When you think of Sam Jones, I always think of Cannonball Adderley, and I always think of Oscar Peterson, because he replaced Ray Brown, I believe, after.
Yeah, there was that short stint, right? And some people say that those are his greatest records. Yeah, and he's a great composer, Sam Jones. And
Sam Jones wrote Cannonball's iconic Unit 7.
Yeah, Unit 7.
Brandy, what is the thing that you tell musicians who are seeing you and they want to move to New York? What are some of the things that you would tell them to do as far as one studying and practicing, as well as composing, as well as performing on the band stage? Because you're coming from Vancouver, it's a long way away, but you are really fulfilling and living out your dream.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say come as soon as you can. It's a very warm, welcoming scene, and there's so many pockets. There's always room to grow and meet new people and explore new music. I think that's part of the excitement. And of course, if you want to work, you have to know a lot of tunes, so you would have to learn your tunes.
And also need to ask you, too, about your role as a band leader, because, now you have to write music for musicians to understand your musical vision, as well as travel, as well as going into the studio record. I mean, that is a big feat also.
Yeah, I know with my first record it did really well, and we were touring a lot, and I remember the band members or certain musicians, after the gig, they would be at the bar and you'd relax, and I'd be like, no, I'm going to go home, I'm going to email people, I'm going to call people, I'm going to book people, get this going, and I think that's really exciting. It's a constant forward motion, pushing, being a squeaky wheel, and I've gone in shifts where I really go back and just practice, and I don't want to be a band leader, and then it clicks and you're like, okay, let's do this, let's dig in. I think right now I'm in a phase where let's do this, let's be aggressive, let's tour.
How has COVID, being the fact the city is shut down, and the venues are closed, and the jazz scene is pretty much kind of at a minuscule right now. How does this last year help or hurt you as a musician?
Oh yeah, it completely helped. As a bass player in New York, you're working every single night. So, it just gave me a lot more time to write, to practice, like stuff on my bucket list that I always just wanted to delve into. We had a session with Anthony Wanzi where we were writing every week, so bringing tunes in, and then he made a record, so that was great. I mean, I've loved it. I have a little bit of anxiety when we go back. We're back in the thick of it, but I've loved the break.
How did you and Anthony meet? Because, I mean, you guys been playing for quite a while.
I was like 21, and we met at the Vienna Opera House. I was playing with the IAJE Sisters in Jazz with Ann Drummond and Tia Fuller, and he was playing with Nicholas Payton, and he was so sweet, just how he is now. He's a comical guy, and it was nice.
addition to you coming to New York and being mentored by the great Ron Carter, Vincent Herring also has a very important part of your life because when you came, he gave you your first opportunity to really play and get exposure here in the city.
Yeah, Vincent Herring's a force. We made a few records together on Smoke Sessions Records, and we got to play with a lot of great drummers. He hires wonderful people, and Cyrus was on a record, and so it was great. It was nice when, someone that you look up to gives you that chance. That's what you're waiting for. You're just waiting for that chance. So we were playing a lot of sessions. You had sessions at his house, and then, finally it blossomed into the band.
How is the music scene, the jazz music scene, in Canada versus here in the United States?
Yeah, Canada has a lot of pockets of wonderful musicians and different free scenes to improvised music to original music, and tremendous players. But here you have the history. Here you have like Mr. Carter. You have George Coleman. It's just like the source. So it just gets passed down directly. And you can obviously go and talk to them and mentor with them and be around that. So I think it's just like a faster, more direct approach of like learning the real music.
How has your native country been receptive to you? Because you're a Juno Award winner, which is the equivalent, that's the Canadians' version of the Grammy.
Yeah, they've supported me always, so I've been lucky about that. I think because I established myself a bit before I left, so it's very nice to have support back home.
Brandy Deesterhalf, what does jazz music mean to you?
jazz music is this overpowering, infectious, danceable music that inspires people around us and that I'm blessed enough to try and share with other people.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report, reporting live here at the Flatiron Room here in New York City. I'd like to personally congratulate and thank the talented Brandy Deesterheft for her time. Make sure you go out and support her current record, Surfboard, featuring the great George Coleman, which is now available on Just in Time Records. You can buy it on Amazon.com, Google Play, Apple Music, as well as CD Baby.
Thank you.